the District Court of the 7th Judicial District, State of Idaho, County of Bonneville. State of Idaho plaintiff versus Randy Michael Larkin, defendant. Case number CR-10-22-6371. Verdict form. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled action for a verdict, unanimously answer the questions submitted to us as follows. Question number 1. Is Randy Michael Larkin guilty or not guilty of first-degree murder? Not guilty. Question number 2. Is Randy Michael Larkin guilty or not guilty of second-degree murder? Guilty. If unanimously answered question number 2 guilty, then you must answer question number 3. Question number 3. Did Randy Michael Larkin personally use a deadly weapon in the commission of the crime of which you have found him guilty? Yes. Dated this 22nd day of November 2024, signed by the presiding officer.
Madam Clerk, let me ask the jury if this is your verdict.
Yes.
Thank you. The attorneys have the right to have the jury pulled. Mr. Neal? Mr. Browning?
Waive it and just thank the jurors for the consideration.
All right. Thank you. I will instruct Madam Clerk to record the verdict on the record. I have a final instruction. I'll be excusing the jury. You have now completed your duties as jurors in this case and are discharged with the sincere thanks of the court. The question may arise to whether you may discuss this case with the attorneys or with anyone else. For your guidance, the court instructs you that whether you talk to the attorneys or to anyone else is entirely your own decision. It is proper for you to discuss this case if you want to, but you are not required to do so. And you may choose not to discuss the case with anyone at all. If you choose to talk to someone about this case, you may tell them as much or as little as you like about your deliberations or the facts that influence your decision. If you decide to discuss this case with anyone, you should be careful to respect the privacy and feelings of your fellow jurors. You should limit your comments to your own perceptions and feelings. If anyone persists in discussing this case over your objections or becomes critical of your service either way, before or after the discussion has begun, you may report it to me through the sheriff's office or through the clerk. You may contact Bonneville County and bring through to the clerk. I want to express my appreciation to the jury. You were very attentive and you worked hard on this. I appreciate your time. As indicated, it is a very difficult duty that you have performed. And I thank you on behalf of the community. I have a couple matters to take up with the attorneys. If you wish to speak with them, you may. You're welcome to wait in the rotunda if you wish, or you may leave. Once again, that is entirely up to you. At this point, we will excuse the jury and thank you once again. Mr. Larkin, you may be seated, sir. Or, well, you better keep standing there at this point.
All rise for the jury.
Thank you. Please be seated. Marshals have asked that I order that members of the gallery remain seated until Mr. Larkin is taken from the courtroom. We do need to schedule a sentencing in order of pre-sentence investigation report. Madam Clerk, please schedule that sentencing. And let me ask Mr. Neal, how long do you think you'll need for sentencing?
We'd love to have it done before January.
The court intends to.
No.
You need an hour, 2 hours?
Oh, for sentencing? I see what you're asking. I'm sorry, Judge. Yeah, an hour would be fine.
Mr. Brown?
Total?
Yeah.
2 of us? Between an hour and a half, somewhere in there.
Court's calendar is full on my Wednesday, but we'll schedule Wednesday afternoon. What day, Madam Clerk?
January 8th.
So we'll schedule it January 8th at 1:30. Does that work, Mr. Brown?
Yes, it does, Your Honor. Let's see. Yes, it does, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. I will order a pre-sentence investigation report be prepared to do that form. Mr. Larkin, we're going to we'll get that to you at the jail. It's a pre-sentence investigation packet. What a pre-sentence investigation report is, it's a report about you. It'll have on it, there's some questions that I'm going to order that you fill out, meaning employment, education, criminal history. There may be some drug and alcohol assessments. I order them on every felony. We will order that be done. There's a pre-sentence investigation packet that we will have delivered to you at the jail. You can have your attorney assist you in filling that out if you wish. However, most of the information is fairly straightforward, meaning where you grew up, family, that type of thing. But if you have questions about that, you are certainly welcome to speak to Mr. Browning about that. You may want to discuss, they will ask you about your interpretation of the crime, and you may need to speak with Mr. Browning about what you'd like to say, because I understand that you may have it, you still have continuing rights. We will order that, like I said, on that time. We'll leave enough time. That'll be the only thing that I handle that afternoon. Anything else we can take up at this time, Mr. Neal?
Could we sidebar just for a second?
Yes. All right, with that, I will once again instruct that the gallery will remain seated. We'll give you a couple minutes, and Mr. Larkin, we will remand you to custody of the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office, awaiting our sentencing date. The bond in this case will remain, the court's actually going to revoke bond at this point, as there's been a conviction on this case. And so at this point, there is no bond or bail amount available. All right, we will be in recess on this matter. Like I said, I'm instructing members of the gallery to remain seated, and then the marshal, based upon the time, marshals will come and escort you out. We're going to be off the record, and we'll be in recess. Thank you. Of course, it's going to be informal. Make sure we get everything taken care of up here. So the parties are free to go, the attorneys if they wish. However, we'll instruct the gallery to remain seated until instructed by the marshal.
Okay, well, you've heard all the evidence. So what we're going to do today is review a lot of the evidence, see, point out some things that you may have noticed, but you may have faded in your memory, and see what happened. So as the jury, of course, you are the ones to make the decision. Our job is to show you the evidence, and your job is to make the decision. Our hope as the state, as the prosecutors, is that you will look at the evidence and conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant should be convicted, should be guilty of the things that he's been accused of. Okay? So let's go through here. Let's just see what we saw. So we talked about power, greed, and pride at the beginning, and that's what this case is about. But there's one phrase that I heard during the evidence that I think encapsulates this whole case better than any other phrase, and it's this right here. I ain't afraid of you, old man. I ain't afraid of you, old man. Do you remember Morey said that? Do you remember the defendant said that Morey said that? I ain't afraid of you, old man. So what we have is Randy Larkin. He's a man who for 35 years worked as an iron worker. An iron worker. He was building skyscrapers, nuclear facilities. I think of a strong man who's working as an iron worker. 35 years. And then what happens? His health starts to fade. He goes on disability. He has some hip surgery. His hand is having problems. He can't grip like he used to. He can't even open his fingers all the way like he used to be able to on his right hand. He was this strong man, but he's getting older. He's approaching 60 years old. And all of a sudden, one day in his life, he has this 36-year-old Morey Pelton, 6 feet tall, 200-pound, 36-year-old Morey Pelton. And Morey will not do what Randy Larkin wants him to do. Morey will not do what Randy wants him to do. Randy Larkin has lent some money to Morey. $4,000 is one figure that we heard, thousands of dollars. He's lent him some money. It was for a drug deal. He knew it was basically drug money. He lends him this money, thinks he's going to get it back. And as the time goes on, he's not getting it back. He used to be this strong guy, this iron worker, but now he's got this 36-year-old kid who will not give his money back. What can Randy Larkin do? What can he do to get this drug money back? He can't call the police, it's drug money. He can't go to small claims court, it's drug money. He can't beat Morey up, you heard him say that. He's getting older. He can't take on a guy like Morey. He doesn't have a lot of options, and he's getting madder and madder. And it doesn't matter how much he texts Morey, that's not helping at all. It doesn't matter how much he calls Morey. It doesn't matter how much he talks to Morey's friends and tells them he's looking for Morey, kind of warns them, gives veiled threats to the friends. Nothing is working, and there's nothing he can do about it. I am afraid of you, old man, is what Morey said. And that burns Randy Larkin, and he does not like that. Let's take a look. These are the texts, I hope you can see those. These are the texts between Randy Larkin and Morey. Okay, let's take a look at the dates. Remember, he was killed on May 12th, 2022. So take a look at the dates. We have Randy Larkin, top of the text message there, couple of hand waves. Hello, hey, what's up? Morey, Sunday, May 1st, 11 days before he's killed. This is Morey. Hey, buddy, what trip? I think it's supposed to say stayed in St. George last night, exhausted. See today soon. So Morey said, I'll see you today. I'll see you today soon. 2 days later, on Tuesday, May 3rd, Randy Larkin is wondering what's going on, right? 4 question marks. I thought you said you were going to see me today soon. It's been 2 days and you owe me $4,000. Where's my money? 4 question marks. That's all he sends. Morey knows what he's talking about and Randy knows what he's talking about too. Where's the money? So Morey says the next day, he finally responds, hey, Randy, and I apologize about the ton of profanity we're going to hear. Hey, Randy, shit, stupid man. I went and what we both needed, the one time I didn't check it. The one time I didn't check it. And if you want to go to the one on that side, it's the same one. The one time I didn't check it. What is it? Morey went down south with $4,000. And the one time he didn't check it, I think it's drugs. He didn't check the drugs. The shit wasn't even right, bro. The shit wasn't even right, bro. The drugs weren't right. Not sure what that means. A different dude, my dumbass, didn't even unwrap it. Didn't even unwrap it. This is Morey. I got home last night. You can see he's pushing off Randy Larkin. I got home last night and checked it out. It's no good. My partner down south got it under control. He found dude that he's got all of our money. I've got to leave tonight or first thing in the morning to go back down. I know, I'm sorry, but no need to worry. My buddy got the cash. This is my fault for not checking it before I left. Please bear with me, okay? I'll talk to you soon, okay? Don't trip, okay, bro? I'm not gonna whatsoever, okay? Thanks. That's what Morey sends him. You can see Morey's kind of pushing this guy off a little bit. He's got a lot of ideas there about why he can't come up with it. Wednesday, May 4th. Previous thing he says, not gonna whatsoever, okay? Thanks. Wednesday, May 4th, Randy Larkin says, I really need you to think about this, kid. I really need you to think about this, kid. Does that sound threatening to you? I really need you to think about this, kid. Think about what, dude? And gotta go fix it. Really don't gotta think about it. Got no choice. You can see that the next part says, I've been told, this is Randy Larkin. Go to the right side there. I've been told it's the best you've had. It's gotta be the drugs. I've been told it's the best you've had. I'm sitting here falling out. Randy Larkin continues, think about this. Been 3 weeks since you took the cash. Morey says, yeah, don't know, Randy. Randy says, so you saying you're not dumping anything to anyone? What could that mean? Giving drugs to people? You're not dumping anything to anyone? Absolutely not. Tell nothing to dump. Absolutely not. Tell nothing to dump. This is Morey. I've had from the time before, and my buddy Rick, I got from him too, so from different shit, presumably. Though but no, I went down there and got effed, dude. So, but the money is down there, everything's all good that way, it's just I got to get back down there by the I'm really call you tomorrow morning, so it's all good. Don't trip, dude. Don't trip. Randy Larkin, you can look at the next one on this side. Come talk to me, damn it. I've told you from the start, and I know the game, damn it, but you must be straight up, and you haven't been. I don't give a if you use my cash, but thinking I don't know is very stupid. All you needed to do is be straight. Morey, there's no game, Randy. I gotta go get our shit. I have no reason to say otherwise. Randy, all right, I sure the thing. A lot of cash out to be here with nothing, while all those around has what? It's gotta be drugs. Let's read that again. All right, I sure the thing. Any drugs at all. A lot of cash out to be here with nothing, while all those around has. Morey says, not from me, bro. In other words, they don't have drugs from me. I'm not giving anybody anything. Randy says, I need some. I need some. We're on May 4th. Next, I'm looking at the next one here. I'm on the way to Kurt's, and I'll have to call you, bro. Or I'll have him call you, bro. Kind of a different topic here. Randy says, why would Kurt call me? Morey, Amber's out of control at the bar. Randy says, I get tired of her bullshit. You might remember Kurt Jackson. He's the owner of the Covered Wagon. Remember hearing about him? His daughter is Britta Jackson. Kurt was one of Randy Larkin's best friends. That's Kurt. You'll hear a little bit more about them. Randy says, I get tired of her bullshit. This is talking about Amber. Different topic. This is Randy. Hey, give me a call, bro. Softens his tone. Sorry about the doubt. I'm in need of a change and a little stressed with a lot of bullshit that I really don't need to deal with. Just be straight with me is all I've ever asked, and I won't listen to the haters. Next day, Thursday, May 5th. This is Morey. Randy, just woke back, bro. I can go get a little from my buddy. I can go get a little from my buddy in Ryrie. Bring it up to give me a bit. Just woke up. Randy says, right on. I got the cash or a trade for the shit we have had for 2 months. That was Thursday, May 5th. So Morey has just told him, I can go get a little from my buddy and get some drugs for you. Randy says, right on, I've got the cash or trade, and then silence for 3 more days. Sunday, May 5th. All Randy has to do is say one thing. We know what he's talking about. Hello. Morey, pushing him off. Hello, Randy, I'm just waking up. My car's getting the tranny service today. I had my partner, Western Union, your money to me last night. I have to go pick it up at Walgreens here shortly, and you can have it back. I don't need you breathing down my back, nor are you running your mouth telling people I owe $10,000, so you can take your cash, go get your fentanyl, cut dope, and leave my name out of your mouth. Okay, I'll drop it off soon. Have a good day. Randy, perfect. Next one, Randy. He says, perfect. Had no problem using my cash, bro. All I've ever asked, I believe, all I've ever asked to be straight up with me now, haven't I? So don't play it off like I'm f***ing you or say shit we both know better. Morey, use your cash. No, Randy, I got sold bunk shit. It's what the f*** happened, and thank God my buddy, honest, thank God my buddy is honest, I think that should say. Thank God my buddy is honest because he could have both. I haven't had any shit. I've been helping my buddy get rid of what he has left from the last time. Like I said, I just woke up. Wherever you get your info from, which I'm assuming it's the Jacksons. You probably put an S on there. We're talking about the Jacksons,
Your Honor,
probably.
can you just read from the exhibit?
Your Honor, I'm making argument.
You can make closing argument. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm assuming it's the Jackson. Makes a lot of sense to say it's the Jacksons, the Kurt Jackson, maybe Britta Jackson. They don't have a clue who and where I get any of it. Okay. Randy says, okay, I'm with you. Don't tell me you would not think the same or ask. It is really no one's business, but when you're out, and they're saying the best you ever had, bro, you tell me. I've been patient more than you would of me. Now shit, come see me. Next one. Still Sunday. This is Randy. When was you are going to be here? When was you are you going to be here? I've got other shit lined up and I need my cash. Morey, what made Idaho Falls yet? But I'll be a bit. This is Sunday. Later that day. What's up? Randy says, 5 o'clock that afternoon. What's up? Morey comes back with more about the money, more reasons he can't bring it. They put 24-hour hold on the cash because of the amount. They do it just in case it's fraudulent, stupid. And Randy says, and H have nothing at all. I think that H should probably be a U, and you have nothing at all. Next day, hasn't heard from Morey again. Monday, May 9th, 3 days before he's shot and killed. Randy, what's up? We all know what he's talking about. He wants his money. What's up? Morey, I'm down here in IF, maybe Idaho Falls, waiting for them to unlock the cash. It's stupid, bro. Randy, I know you think you send cash, you should be able to get cash, but nope, they don't. Morey, it's the amount is why Western Union. Tuesday, next day, Randy, hello, what's up? Morey, bro, you don't even know or want to know. All I gotta say is, won't release the money to me, so I'm getting it figured out. May 12th, the day he dies, 11 o'clock in the morning. One last message from Morey. Randy, they're not the money, being on the phone yesterday, and today I've sent them a pic of me with my ID. They're telling me they can't verify if my ID is fake or real. Here's my opinion. I can either have my buddy get the money, release back to him, or I drive down and get it, which I would prefer to do that for the simple fact it's Mexicans, but let's find where we are. For the simple fact it's Mexicans, but I'm won't leave for a couple more days. I'm rounding up cash because I'm not driving down just to pick up money, drive back. Go to the next side over there. Sorry about this cluster. You, man. I know communication hasn't been the best. That's on me, on my end. Should have never had him try Western Union your money, so I'm sure you're getting upset. I would be too. Not sure how to read this. I would be too. Be shit happens. You've been good to me, bro. So please try not to stress out about it, Kay. I'm not gonna burn you, okay? I've been out of shit for a good minute myself, Kay? Please trust me. Okay, so you see what's happening. You see Randy Larkin doesn't have a lot of options. He can't get this money. Texting's not working. Talking to people around town is not working, and everybody seems to know that Randy Larkin is owed money. Everyone seems to know that Morey is not giving Randy his money, and they must know that Randy is not having, a way to get it. And Randy knows that everybody knows that he can't do anything about it. I ain't afraid of you, old man. And Randy Larkin is feeling that. He's feeling that. Let's talk about Kelly Hinks. What did Kelly Hinks say? He's the guy who arranged for the meeting with Morey in the rest area. What are some things that Kelly Hinks said? You remember this, as we kind of had two actors. We had the woman here asking the questions, and then we had the sort of court employee answering as if he was Kelly Hinks. Kelly Hinks is deceased, if you remember that. But we had his testimony. What are a few things that he said? Talking about Morey, this is what Kelly Hinks said. He said, he pulled in beside me. This is Morey. Morey pulled in beside me. We were just talking. It'd been a while since we've seen each other. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? That was about it. Does that sound like a crazed lunatic on meth? Morey? Was he crazy, hyped up on meth? We were just talking. It'd been a while since we've seen each other. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? That was about it. Is he crazy, crazy eyes, spittle on his face? Doesn't sound like it. Randy Larkin pulls up. Morey leans out and says, hey man, what's up? This is what Kelly Hinks said. Hey man, what's up? Did you read your emails yet? Does that sound like a crazy guy on meth? Hey man, what's up? Did you read your emails yet? Then this crazy guy on meth, Morey, says, what? You brought a gun? Kelly says a very interesting phrase. Kelly responds by saying, hey, don't put that thing up before somebody gets hurt. What thing? Well, he's assuming, apparently, based on the fact that Morey just says, what, you brought a gun? Kelly's like, put that thing up. He apparently haven't seen it. His view was blocked, if you remember, supposedly. Put that thing up before somebody gets hurt. Randy was talking to him some more. This is what Kelly's saying. Randy was talking to him some more, talking to Morey. Kelly says, I could not hear what he was saying. Could not hear what Randy was saying. Then Morey says, you think I'm scared of you? You think I'm scared of you? Why would Morey say that? Why would anybody say, you think I'm scared of you? What would have happened right before someone said that to prompt them to say the phrase, you think I'm scared of you? Kelly says this. Well, the question from the prosecutor was this. Did you ever hear anything that Randy said? Any of the words that he said? So we got some from Morey. Kelly Hinks says, here's what Morey said. Did you ever hear anything that Randy said? Kelly says, I didn't, no. The question was, could you hear his tone? No. Kelly says, he was talking really quiet. So I don't know what he was saying. And then the question for Kelly was, if you had to pick between Morey and Randy, who started the aggressive action? And what did Kelly Hinks say? Randy. Now, look at the one above that. Did you ever hear anything that Randy said? Nope. He was talking too quiet. So when he asks him, well, who started the aggressive action? Is Kelly Hinks talking about the words that Randy said? No, he didn't hear anything that Randy said. He was talking too quiet. So he started the aggressive action. That means he was doing something. Not that he was saying something. He was too quiet to hear. He was doing something. What was he doing? What aggressive action was he doing that made Kelly Hinks think Randy was the one who started the aggressive action? Kelly was asked, at what point did you notice the gun? And his answer, when Randy started backing out and was headed back to his car. I seen it in his hand then. When? When Randy started backing out and was headed back to his car. I seen it in his hand then. It said he said he in the testimony, but he was Randy Larkin. This is Kelly. Randy Larkin hollered at me and told me to get the F out of there. He had gone up the circular part already and was like headed back up to the main car parking lot. Oh, sorry, this is the question. Let's do the whole thing again. Randy Larkin hollered at me and told me to get the F out of there. Then the questioner asks, he had gone up the circular part already and was like headed back up to the main car parking lot with the restroom? Hinks says, yes. Questioner says, okay, so he yelled pretty loud? Yes. Let's look at that. So he had gone up the circular part already and was headed back up to the main car parking lot and apparently yells so loud to Kelly Hinks, get the F out of there. They're already halfway out, it sounds like, and he yells, get the F out of there to Kelly Hinks. So, there you go, about Kelly Hinks. Let's talk about self-defense for a moment, and then we'll move on. I would like you, if you have your packets, turn to instruction number 18. And what you'll see on the screen is exactly what you will see here in your instruction. Let's just talk about this one more time. Doesn't hurt to take a quick look. A homicide is justifiable if the defendant was acting in self-defense. And I think we all understand that. You can protect yourself, right? If the defendant was acting in self-defense. In order to find that the defendant acted in self-defense, all of the following conditions must be found. Not some of them, all of them, to have been in existence at the time of the killing. 1, the defendant, we can say Randy Larkin, must have believed that Randy Larkin was in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm. He must have believed that. 2, in addition to that belief, the defendant must have believed that the action that he, Randy Larkin, took was necessary to save the defendant from the danger presented. 3, the circumstances must have been such that a reasonable person under similar circumstances would have believed that the defendant was in imminent danger of death or great bodily injury and believed that the action taken was necessary. So that's not Randy Larkin believing that. That's a reasonable person under the similar circumstances would have also believed the same thing. 4, the defendant must have acted only in response to that danger and not for some other motivation. Not for some other motivation, only the danger. And 5, when there is no longer any reasonable appearance of danger, the right of self-defense ends. Okay? In deciding upon the reasonableness of the defendant's beliefs, you should determine what an ordinary and reasonable person might have concluded from all the facts and circumstances which the evidence shows existed at the time, and not with the benefit of hindsight. The danger must have been present and imminent, or must have so appeared to a reasonable person under the circumstances. A bare fear of death or great bodily injury, that has bodily injury there twice, is not sufficient to justify a homicide. A bare fear of death or great bodily injury is not sufficient to justify a homicide. The defendant must have acted under the influence of fears that only a reasonable person would have had in a similar position. And of course, we know, as the last paragraph says, the burden is on us, me, the state, the prosecution, and my colleague, to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the homicide was not justifiable. If there is a reasonable doubt whether the homicide was justifiable, you must find the defendant not guilty. Okay? So, something to keep in mind here. I would like to quickly look at a couple more other instructions. Malice, that's just a weird word. Instruction 17, malice. What is malice? We don't use that word very often. Okay, it's expressed when there's manifested a deliberate intention unlawfully to kill a human being. It's implied when the killing resulted from an intentional act. 2, the natural consequences of the act are dangerous to human life. And 3, the act was deliberately performed with knowledge of the danger to and with conscious disregard for human life. It's a little bit of a hard word to get your brain around, but if you're ever questioning, go back to number 17. And what does malice mean? You can remember. Self-defense, we just went through. First degree murder, instruction 22. Let's have a quick look. All right, you must find all of these things in order to find the defendant guilty. 1, it was on or about between May 12, 2022 and May 13, 2022. And my question right now for you is, was it? Because if so, we can just move on. So yes or no. Number 2, in the state of Idaho, yes or no? Well, yes. 3, the defendant, Randy Michael Larkin, engaged in conduct which caused the death of Morey Pelton. Yes. 4, the defendant acted without justification or excuse, and that's probably where you'll have to make your decision. Number 4, the defendant acted without justification or excuse. We're suggesting that it was not self-defense. 5, with malice aforethought, go back to instruction 17 if you forget what malice means. 6, the murder was a willful, deliberate, and premeditated killing. But when we say premeditated, sometimes we think, oh, they were thinking about it for months or weeks or years. No. Premeditation means to consider beforehand whether to kill or not to kill, and then to decide to kill. There does not have to be any appreciable period of time during which the decision to kill was considered, as long as it was reflected upon before the decision was made. A mere unconsidered and rash impulse, even though it includes an intent to kill, is not premeditation. And then we can go to 23 for second degree murder. If you decide it doesn't quite fit second or first degree murder, you can go to 23, which is basically the same things except for number 6. There's no number 6. So 1, it was May 12th, 2022, May 13th, 2022. This is number 23. Number 2, in the state of Idaho. 3, the defendant, Randy Michael Larkin, engaged in conduct which caused the death of Morey Pelton. And 4, acted without justification or excuse. Again, it's going to be number 4 you'll have to decide about. And number 5, with malice aforethought. And of course, we want you to follow all the instructions that are written here. I'm just trying to help you to understand them better. Your job is to follow the instructions that are written. All right, let's take a quick look at the verdict form, and then we'll be done with our forms. The verdict form is number 32, instruction 32. Okay, so this is what you're actually going to put a checkbox on. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled action for our verdict unanimously, we all agree, answer the questions submitted to us as follows. Question 1, guilty or not guilty of first degree murder? Okay, you'll fill that out. If you unanimously answer number 1 guilty, then do not answer question 2. You can skip question 2, but you must answer question 3. If you unanimously answer question number 1 not guilty, go on to number 2, proceed to question 2. Is Randy Michael Larkin guilty or not guilty of second-degree murder? Not guilty or guilty. You can see the checkbox there. And then the third, question 3 again is just, was it a deadly weapon? You can read the actual instruction yourself. Okay, let's do some true-false. True-false. Before the shooting, Larkin was asking Britta Jackson almost every week if she had seen Morey. Before the shooting, Larkin was asking Britta Jackson almost every week if she had seen Morey. Larkin said that this was true. He was asking her almost every week if she'd seen Morey. In the weeks before the shooting, talking about Morey owing him money, Larkin repeatedly told Britta Jackson, "You have no idea what I'm capable of. You have no idea what I'm capable of." Did Larkin say that was true or false? He said false. A few weeks before the shooting, Buckskin Burton said Larkin mentioned that Morey owed Larkin money. Buckskin said that Larkin had mentioned that Morey owed Larkin money. What did Larkin say about that? He said that one was true. A few days before the shooting, Kristen Davis, if you remember, she cleaned Mr. Larkin's house. Kristen Davis, the house cleaner, said that Randy Larkin said, "All I would have to do is make a phone call and Morey would be dead." Was that, did Larkin say that was true or false? He said that was false. A few days before the shooting, Randy Larkin texted Britta Jackson about Morey and said, "I really don't need to go to jail now." This is Larkin. "I really don't need to go to jail now, knowing exactly what I will do and don't want the expense of sending someone else. He picked the wrong time to play fuck." Did Larkin say that was true or false? Well, he said that was false. Mid-afternoon on the day of the shooting, on May 12th, talking about Morey, Buckskin said Larkin was mad and said the kid owed him money and Larkin wanted to beat him up. Did Larkin say this was true or false? He said it was false. On the way to the rest area, or at the rest area, Larkin said he wanted to beat up Morey, and he said he wanted to shoot the little son of a bitch. Did Larkin say that was true or false? Oh, we'll have to see the end. These are out of order. Let's look at this next one. Hamlin said Larkin, remember Gerald Hamlin, the driver. Hamlin said Larkin wanted Hamlin to drive because none of Larkin's vehicles were running right. That's what Hamlin said. Larkin wanted to drive because none of Larkin's vehicles were running right. Let's take a look at both of these. Hopefully it's not too out of order. Okay, Larkin said false. Larkin said, I didn't say that. On the way to the rest area, at the rest area, Larkin said he wanted to beat up Morey, said he wanted to shoot the little son of a bitch. Larkin said false. That's not what he said. Moving on, parked at the restrooms, Hamlin said Buckskin and Larkin were talking about beating Morey and taking his drugs and money. What did Larkin say about that? He said that was false. Buckskin said Larkin was strung out, fucked up, higher than a kite. What did Larkin say about that? False. Just a few more. Morey said, "Fuck you, Randy, what are you gonna do, shoot me?" Larkin said false. That was not said. After the shooting, Larkin told Buckskin and Hamlin to keep their mouths shut. Well, Larkin said that was false. He told them up. After the shooting, Larkin got in Hamlin's SUV and said, "Get the f*** out of here." Well, he said that one was true. While driving away from the rest area, Larkin told his friends, "Snitches, they find in ditches." What did Larkin say about that? False. He never said that. That's his claim. A few days after the shooting, Randy Larkin told Britta Jackson, "I should have known that one of the Jackson sisters would rat me out." True or false? Larkin says it's false. A few days after the shooting, Chris Hansen went to Larkin's house with Keegan Mann and asked if Larkin shot Morey. He asked him, he confronted him, "Did you shoot Morey?" Larkin said no, he would never do something like that. Larkin said that was false. Once Hamlin reached Arizona, remember Gerald Hamlin was driving to Arizona, he has a cousin's funeral in Arizona, stopped in Idaho on his way, on to Arizona. Once he reached Arizona, Larkin contacted him to see how he was, and also to repeat to him to keep quiet. What did Randy Larkin say about that? He said, true on the first part, false on the second part. True, he contacted him to see how he was, false about repeating to keep quiet. They can't both be right. So, the thing that I think about, these are not Larkin's enemies. These are not people that Randy Larkin hates. These are his friends. Do you remember what he said to Britta Jackson? Britta, when she was testifying, she says he came up to her and said, hey sis, how you doing? That's a friend. That's almost like a daughter. Hey sis, how you doing? These are his drinking buddies. So all of his friends, almost like family, and his drinking buddies are either making up a whole bunch of stuff about Randy, or Randy is not quite telling us what happened. And why would all of these friends who are so close to him be making all of this stuff up? Why would they make all of this stuff up? On the other hand, can you think of a reason why Randy Larkin would be telling a slightly different story? Okay, Chelsea Larkin, the defendant's daughter. She's at his side in the hospital when he wakes up from, his suicide attempt. And what does he say? Maybe his guard's a little down. It's his daughter. He just came out from a suicide attempt. What did he tell Chelsea? He can't remember, he says. He said, I made a mistake. And by the way, Chelsea, if you remember, when she had just walked in, Dad was just sort of unconscious or sleeping. There's police there. She didn't know why there were police there, but there's police there. They inform her that Dad's a person of interest. And she's kind of getting a clue really quickly about a lot of things going on with her dad. Dad wakes up. They start talking about the shooting, and she says that her dad said, I made a mistake. Think about self-defense. Think about somebody who is actually defending themselves. They truly believe it was me or him. It was me or him. One of us is dying right now. And I don't want to die. So I shoot that person. I kill them. Later on, do I say, I made a mistake? Is that how I refer to the me or him situation? I made a mistake? I don't think so. I made a mistake. I shot someone, Randy Larkin says. The guy said I was old. The guy said I was old. I made a mistake. I shot someone. The guy said I was old. I ain't afraid of you, old man. You can see how in maybe a moment of vulnerability, a moment of just coming out, a moment right there with his daughter, he explains why he shot Morey Pelton. The guy said I was old. We have our experts, both Dr. DiLoretto and Matthew Nodell. We have a coroner, we have a blood spatter expert. Both identify what they thought was stippling on Morey's face, gunpowder burns. We learned that was a short enough distance that unburned grains of gunpowder can strike the skin. We learned that, is there any scientific way to know how one individual with a lot of meth was acting? No. We talked about it's like a happy drunk or an angry drunk. There's many different reactions that one individual can have from, that different individuals can have from the same amount of alcohol or from the same amount of meth. Matthew Nodell's final conclusion, he said Morey was not standing or crouching, but was seated in the driver's seat. He was not standing, he was not crouching, he was seated in the driver's seat. Okay, one of the ways that he reached this conclusion, at the time of the gunshot, the door was partially open, mostly closed. He kind of went back and forth, partially open, mostly closed, kind of the same thing. The door was partially open, mostly closed, and one way that he reached this conclusion, among others, was, as you can see, right here, no blood, no blood, no blood, blood, and blood. Some blood here, and they asked, would you expect to see blood here if the door was open? Of course you would. It's on the door itself. It's right here. But why is there sort of a line right there? And his conclusion was because the door was partially open, mostly closed. Morey Pelton's jeans. The expert, Matthew Nodell, said the pants were level at the time. They were level. He was not standing up. Here's the jeans. Okay? The thing that draws my attention is this stain right here. Randy Larkin's expert says that this was such a force of blood that it sort of just splattered almost regardless of gravity. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because I see two lines right here, one right here and one right here. And if it's such a force of blood that it sort of splatters everywhere, I'm expecting to see maybe a lot of blood lines going many different directions, not two, one, two, that are going the direction of gravity down the pants. Now, if it was gravity and someone was standing, which direction would this blood be flowing? It would be flowing straight down the pants, because that's how gravity works if you're standing. If you're sitting and blood lands there, you might have two little rivers of blood that travel sideways like this, perpendicular. Larkin's blood expert, the one he paid, the retired lady who had been a blood analysis person, she came and said somehow the blood came out of Morey Pelton's sleeve and hit the steering wheel. You remember all the blood on the steering wheel? She said somehow the wound was approximately right here, lower right shoulder blade. Somehow it struck, the bullet, struck, exit wound, and we talked about there was no hole in the t-shirt. So the bullet did not have enough force to break the t-shirt. It had enough force to break the skin. It created an exit wound, but not enough force to break the t-shirt. But according to her, it did have enough force to cause a high energy blood from up here to come over here down his sleeve and then somehow leap off onto the steering wheel. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. She did conclude, if you remember this, her final conclusion, she changed it a couple times slightly, but her final conclusion, the thigh had to be seated or nearly seated, and the final thing she said, he was seated or the word slightly off the seat. He was seated or slightly off the seat. Was he coming out of the door? Was he coming out at Randy Larkin? Even his own expert says he was seated or slightly off the seat. Okay. Randy Larkin believes, apparently, that Morey is well connected with the Mexican mafia. He's so scared of the Mexican mafia that he attempts suicide. We asked him, was it because of the police? Were you worried about getting caught you killed Morey? Were you worried that the police were coming to get you? No. He was worried the Mexican mafia were coming. They're brutal. Kill me or worse, he said. He was worried about he's so scared of Morey Pelton because of his connections to the Mexican mafia that he attempted suicide so that he could die before the Mexican mafia could get him. That's what he said. And I'll come back to that in a minute, but just have that in mind. We asked, why did you bring a gun to the dollar store, to the rest area to stop any violence in case Morey freaked out? He wanted to protect himself. That's why he brought the gun. Keeping in mind, he believes Morey is well connected to the mafia. So he believes it so much he attempted suicide. His hands were on Morey's door. Why? To make sure Morey couldn't get out. Do you remember him saying that? He put his hands on Morey's door, on the car of the door, kind of like this. He put his hands on the door to make sure Morey couldn't get out. suggesting that Randy Larkin is somewhat worried that Morey could get out. He might come out, put his hands on the door so he couldn't get out. And then later, as Randy Larkin was walking away, he described that Morey was already out like this right here. Morey was already out like this right here. He demonstrated. I can't demonstrate it myself. I hope you remember. Morey was already out like this right here, coming at me. He was coming up at me. I saw as he got out something shiny and black in his hand. He could see Morey's whole face, he said. So Randy Larkin said that he saw something silver and black, shiny silver and black. He said he saw that. What did he see? What did Randy Larkin see? It wasn't a gun. There was no gun. There was no gun in Morey Pelton's hands. Even Randy Larkin said moments later he saw Morey Pelton's fists raised, and couldn't you see then there wasn't a gun? He wasn't sure. Maybe he had dropped it. He didn't really know. But bottom line, there was no gun. There was no gun at all. So what did Randy Larkin see? Something black, something shiny, something black and silver, something shiny. What could it have been? What was Morey Pelton coming out of the car with? Apparently hand first, which is sort of an odd way to come out of your car. He was coming out hand first with what? Well, with nothing. We know it was nothing because there was nothing at the scene. Randy Larkin got out of there as soon as he shot him. There was nothing at the scene. There was nothing in his hands. There was no gun. There was nothing. What did he see? Or what did he think he saw? Or did maybe he not see anything at all? What might you think it could be? What might a normal person have in our society today that's black and silver and shiny? What could that maybe be that you might see? Maybe a cell phone. But guess what? Where was Morey's cell phone? Right there on that seat. I don't know if he's trying to get you to think think it was maybe his cell phone, and that's why I thought, no, it wasn't a cell phone. That cell phone is plugged in, sitting on that seat. Do you think that after Morey was shot, let's say the cell phone was in his hand, he, for whatever reason, reaches out of the car with the cell phone in his hand, which we have to, I think, agree that that's kind of a strange thing to do, but let's say he did that. He reaches out, cell phone in hand, gets shot, puts the cell phone back on the seat, and then stumbles forward. Do you think that's what happened? I don't think so. That cell phone, I don't know how long that cord is, doesn't look too long. He didn't put the cell phone back and then fall. And why would he even have a cell phone at all? He didn't have a cell phone. He had nothing. Randy Larkin is depending on you believing that he saw something in Morey Pelton's hands. There was nothing in Morey Pelton's hands. And Randy Larkin did not see anything in his hands. But that's Randy Larkin's only hope of getting out of this. Randy Larkin's hand, his right hand, had been operated on 8 times. Remember him telling you about that? He can't grip well. He can't open his fingers completely. If you remember how he demonstrated, I'm not going to do it, but if you remember how he demonstrated, he couldn't open his fingers completely on his right hand, and it was worse 2 years ago. Well, that's interesting, because as he turned around, he heard a sound, he turned around with this sort of slightly disabled hand, saw Morey with something black and shiny in his hand, and was a fast enough draw with this disabled hand to pull a gun out of the left side of his belt, pull it this direction, and shoot with this disabled right hand. Is that really what happened? Randy Larkin said his discussion with Morey Pelton was heated from the start. And then Randy Larkin, who came over and held the door shut because he didn't want Morey to get out, and Randy Larkin, who's so scared of Morey's connections to the Mexican mafia that he attempted suicide so that he wouldn't get hurt by the Mexican mafia. He's that scared of Morey. In a dark, isolated rest area, in a dark place of the rest area with no lights at all, Randy Larkin, after having a very heated argument, yell, F you, F you. What does he do? Turns his back on this guy and starts walking away. Is that really what he did? He's so scared of Morey that he holds the door shut so Morey won't come out. He's not a healthy guy himself. He can't take him on. He's scared of his connections to the mafia, and it's dark. He turns his back on him and walks away. Did he turn his back on him and walk away? I don't think so. Randy Larkin says this. The question was, why did you yell, get the F out of here to Kelly Haynes? Well, we were all going to get in trouble. Why? Why are you all going to get in trouble for a crazy moment of self-defense? Why are you all going to get in trouble? Okay. That brings us to the restroom. Who knew that the restroom would be such an important part of this case? What did Randy Larkin say about the restroom? Randy Larkin said he got out and used the restroom. And I'm nearly done. Let me just check my clock. I don't know when. Okay. We'll take a break if we need to, but I think I can finish before a break. Thank you. Larkin got out and used the restroom. That's what he said. Question for Randy Larkin. You didn't walk around the restrooms? Answer. No. Question for Randy Larkin. The cameras would capture you if you went to the restroom. Answer. Yes. Question for Randy Larkin. If you went to the men's restroom, that camera would capture you? Answer, yes. Question for Randy Larkin. Would you be surprised if the Idaho Transportation Department, if the ITD man says, the camera says you never entered the men's bathroom? Would you be surprised if the camera says you never entered the men's bathroom? Yes, I would. Almost jokingly, the question was, 1 minute is pretty fast to use the restroom, right? We're going to watch in just a moment, you'll see. 1 minute's pretty fast to use the restroom, right? And Randy Larkin says something like, well, if there wasn't anyone in there, in where? If there wasn't anyone in there, in where? Where else? In the restroom. It's pretty fast to use the restroom in 1 minute, right? Well, if there wasn't anyone else in the restroom, maybe it's not so fast. He's trying to make it sound like he went in the restroom, and he went pretty quick and got out. But that's not what happened. And now we're going to watch that, if we can get that queued up. So let me just tell you what we're going to watch. It's not great video, but you can clearly see Randy Larkin did not go in the restroom at all. He walked past the restroom, just like the ITD man said yesterday. He said, we asked, was he walking towards the restroom? No. Did he go in the restroom? No. And he watched the entire video of that restroom camera. Randy Larkin never got in. He never went in the restroom. What did he do? Let's watch that. So, what we're going to look at here, we're going to watch it a couple times. It's not super easy to see, but once you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So we have this camera 9. Okay, this is looking at the trailer parking and all that. My colleague zooming in on camera 9 there. And I think, Zeb, I think we can zoom in a little bit further maybe. Okay, this is Hamlin's vehicle pulling up. Randy Larkin in Hamlin's vehicle right here. Randy Larkin gets out. I know it's not easy to see. He gets out and he starts walking. Walking, past this light. past this light. He's not going in the bathroom. Past that light. And he goes over. Watch this light right here above my finger. Right there. Randy Larkin shows up. And then he disappears for 24 seconds. He disappears for 24 seconds. And just watch and you'll see him reappear. He came back. And now he's walking back. You'll see him pass in front of these two windows. Pass in front of window 1, window 2. He'll pass in front of this one. And heads back to his car. Okay. Zeb, can we zoom in a little bit further and we'll just show it one more time. Of course, as you know, if we zoom in too far, it gets very pixelated and it's hard to see, but we try and get the just the right amount of zooming in so you can see it. And we're almost done, believe it or not. Okay, so there we are. It's camera 9, facing towards that restroom area across the long parking lot. Zooming in, and maybe zoom out a little bit more if you can. Okay. Randy Larkin pulls out while Gerald Hamlin driving with Randy Larkin in the SUV. Randy Larkin gets out, stands up, walks, does not go in the restroom, walks in front of that kind of window thing, another window, comes over here, and you'll see him appear right here below those lights. And there he is. Then he disappears, 24 seconds. In a minute, I'll talk to you about what he could see there and remind you of what they said can be seen from that area. And he reappears. And he walks back towards his car. Watch as he passes in front of these two windows. There he goes. There he goes. Next one. And back to his car. Okay. Okay, let's see if I... Let's go over this one more time. Larkin said he got out and used the restroom. You didn't walk around the restroom? No. No. Cameras would capture if you went to the restroom? Yes. If you went to the men's restroom, that camera would capture you? Yes. Would you be surprised if the ITD man says the camera says you never entered the men's bathroom? Yes, I would. He would be surprised. 1 minute's pretty fast to use the restroom, right? If there wasn't anyone in there. So he clearly did not go in the restroom. What can he see from that vantage point back behind those restrooms? Remember what the ITD man said? You can see the beautiful area of the river, the mountains. It's a nice lookout point, and you can also see right down into the lower parking lot. Why did he keep insisting that he went in the restroom when he definitely did not go in the restroom? And what was he doing back behind the restrooms in that area that has a direct view to the lower parking lot? What was he doing? He'd already visited down there once, spent 5 minutes there waiting, came back up, parked at the restroom, got out of the restroom, walked behind the restroom, and went to that area where you could see down at the lower lot. I can think of some things. Checking what kind of a view you can see. Is it possible to see down there from up here? What does the light look like down there compared to up here? What was he doing back there for 24 seconds? He was not in the restroom, no matter how many times he told us he was not. So our request, my request, is just to try to use what I think of as just common sense. What happened here? Larkin was angry. He wanted his money. Morey Pelton was avoiding him, blowing him off. Larkin felt like a helpless old man, someone who can't do anything about it. Larkin thinks Morey is well connected with the Mexican mafia. Larkin secretly plans to surprise and confront Morey in a dark lower part of an isolated rest area at nearly 10 p.m. to this Mexican mafia guy, an old guy with a hand that's not working properly. He's not that healthy. He's going to confront a Mexican mafia guy with a gun. Is that really what he is thinking? Morey says, "What are you going to do, shoot me? I ain't afraid of you, old man." And that's all it took. Randy Larkin cannot be an old man. Randy Larkin cannot handle a 36-year-old flaunting him. He shoots and kills Morey. Only one other person ever said anything about self-defense. We certainly got Randy Larkin claiming it was self-defense. We only ever heard that from one other person, and that was Kelly Hinks. Kelly Hinks said that Larkin told him that he thought he saw a gun. Kelly Hinks didn't say he thought he saw a gun. Kelly Hinks says Larkin told him that Larkin thought he saw a gun, and that's the only person we ever heard that from, other than Larkin himself. Everybody else never said the word self-defense one time. And so, after the shooting, for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7, counting all the way up until after he attempted suicide, nearly a month later. All of those days pass by in which Larkin never mentions to his friends that he thought Morey had a gun. He never asks if they saw a gun. It seems like someone might ask their friend, "Did you see a gun? I thought I saw a gun. Didn't you see a gun?" Never asks anybody that. He said his lawyer told him later, after the suicide, to not talk to anybody. Well, that was nearly a month later. For that whole month, he never called up Buckskin or Hamlin or Hinks. "Did you see a gun? I thought I saw a gun." And he leaves before he knows whether there was a gun. He just leaves. So as far as he's concerned, he thinks there maybe was a gun, but he never asks anybody about it. He never talks to his friends about it. That is odd. He denies it, but his friends say he threatened them to keep quiet. He says he never said that. But his friends, this is not his enemies, this is Hamlin and Buckskin, they said he threatened them to keep quiet. He attempted suicide to avoid death or worse from the Mexican mafia. That's how scared he is of the Mexican mafia. That's what he says. He didn't want to talk about it because he was scared of the Mexican mafia. But he didn't mind going down to that rest area late at night to confront a guy half his age and twice his size. Larkin told his daughter, and again, I know it's hard to think of it like this, but I just think of just common sense. He tells his daughter, I made a mistake. I shot someone. The guy said I was old. And again, at that time, Larkin still didn't know that Morey didn't have a gun. Didn't hear anything about self-defense to his own daughter. He said, I made a mistake. I shot someone. Larkin's denying what all of his friends are saying. Does that make sense? Now, if you want, this may help you. You can even use just the word sorry. Sorry. As a juror, you can think of the word sorry. Sorry, but there are consequences. Sorry, but this was not self-defense. Sorry, but our society does not accept this type of behavior. Sorry he was upset. Sorry you were mad. Sorry this guy wasn't giving you the money. Sorry, but this is wrong. We hope you'll find him guilty. Randy Larkin didn't just kill Morey Pelton. He murdered him. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, now it's my time to talk, and I'm glad that I get a chance to address you. Thank you for your patience for the time that you've been here, being able to sit through whatever it was, 2 hours worth of bathroom videos that we had to sit through yesterday. But I'd like to talk to you about several things. First thing that struck me when I was looking at the evidence in this case is we got two scenarios. That's what this whole case is about. This whole case is not about what happened over several months. It's what happened in 2 months. What happened down at the lower area of the rest stop. And it's about whether you believe that a person sitting in a car, they get shot in the face, fully seated. He's fully seated here, and then after getting shot through the neck and the carotid artery, shoves his door open, stands up fully, and then walks up, and then gets around and falls down. Or whether that same person, when shot, was actually getting out, facing around that way, in the process of getting up. And at that point, the guy only had, once he was shot, only had like a couple of seconds to live, really. He was in the process of getting up and out and attacking Randy when he was shot. And his momentum carried him up. He turned around briefly, and then turned around again to face Randy a second time, and then fell on his face. We can know, we know for sure, he was looking Randy right in the eyes when he got shot. He was looking him right in the eyes. He was getting out of his car to attack Randy. Now, before I get into the main part of my presentation, I'd like to go over a few things that the prosecutor stated that I think were actually significant. And I appreciate the prosecutor pointing out to you that in Morey Pelton's text to Randy Larkin, in days before May 12, 2022, that he was dealing with the Mexicans. I didn't pick that up when I was looking at the evidence. I miss things sometimes. But Morey Pelton said the simple fact is it's the Mexicans. That was in one of his texts, to Randy when he was telling him why it was taking a long time to get his money back to him. So it was Morey Pelton that first brought into this case the Mexicans, because that's where he got his methamphetamine. And Randy knew it. When discussing next, I'd like to move on to Kelly Hinks. The state talked about Kelly Hinks' testimony, and they missed a couple of things. They got a couple of things out of order. Now, they mentioned that Kelly Hinks was asked a question in the grand jury, and in grand jury testimony, there's no defense attorney. Nobody's allowed to cross-examine to ask follow-up questions, when a question's asked. So Elaine, being the prosecutor who was asking the questions at that time, asked Kelly Hinks, who got aggressive first? And he said, well, Randy. And that would be true because Kelly was talking with Morey about dealing drugs, and then in comes Randy, and Randy gets in between him and confronts Morey Pelton. So that, in that sense, yeah, you could say that Randy was aggressive first. However, there was no follow-up question about who was aggressive next, and did Randy walk away from it? And they didn't really have to ask that question because in the testimony of Kelly Hinks, he tells you that Randy walked away from him. He finished his argument that he had. He was walking away back toward Gerald Hamlin's car. He says that at that point that Morey Pelton got out of his car, took a few steps, turned around, came back again. It didn't happen, we know that it didn't happen that way because, we've heard from Kim Duddy. And she was the one that testified, what her blood analysis showed. Yes, Morey Pelton was getting out of his car. He was up, partially out of the car, partially in, partially out, facing Randy when he got shot. But what I submit to you that Kelly got wrong was that the steps that he was saying that he took, he was just talking about, he remembered things a little different. It was a shocking event. And so he didn't remember exactly what happened. There was some stumbling around by Morey after he got shot. He was up, and just as Randy told you, he looked around this way, he stumbled, got up, put his hand on top of the door, and then turned around and fell on his face. Because he didn't have any strength to do anything more. He didn't have any strength to get up out of the seat, push the door open, walk out, and do what the prosecutor would like to have you believe. So Kelly Hinks did talk about that. He also made the statement that after everybody had left and he got back and he saw Randy back at Randy's house, that Randy told him, "I thought he had a gun." And that's what he said. And whatever verbiage was used by Randy exactly, it doesn't matter. Randy thought he had a gun. We know that, in fact, Morey did not have a gun at that time. Randy thought he did. Why did he think he did? We'll talk about that in a moment, but he knew that Morey always had a gun with him, and he knew when he was in a car where he put his gun. And you're going to see in just a second that when the investigators looked at the inside of Morey Pelton's vehicle, they found the bullets that he had for his gun. Who keeps bullets in the door pocket or whatever of their car except somebody that generally is going to have a gun inside the car? Morey Pelton. He had his bullets right in there. For whatever reason, we don't know. The gun was not with him on that occasion, and that's something that was not known to Randy Larkin. I thought it was also not amusing, but of interest, that Mr. Hamlin, in addressing you for the state, called Britta Jackson and Chris Hansen Randy's friends. I think you remember Chris Hansen, when we brought him back on the stand. I started asking questions, and I asked him about if Morey Pelton hated Randy. He says, "I hate Randy." He made that very plain, that he's not his friend. Randy put his trust in some people that he shouldn't have, and he may have thought that he was his friend. And then Chris's wife, Britta Jackson, testified just before him that she felt the same way. They both hated Randy. So they're not testifying as friends of Randy, they're testifying as people who hate Randy. And we know from Chris Hansen's testimony that, I won't put it in terms that I'd otherwise put it in, but he did not tell the truth. I asked him several things about what he'd said, in his interview that he had earlier, about things that he'd said about Morey Pelton, and he denied them. So we actually had to play the interview that he had with one of the detectives 2 days after Morey was shot. And he lied about everything that he was asked, at that time. Gerald Hamlin. I feel so bad for that fellow. He was going out, to basically with some friends to drop him off, and they were all planning to go out to Idaho Falls. They were going to go out to Muddy's, and have some beers. He was going to go on, leave from there to go to Arizona where he was going to a funeral. He was threatened by the state. He was threatened by the prosecution in this case, and you heard it from him. They charged him, they arrested him. They charged him with first-degree murder. and made him sit in jail for 6 months until he signed papers saying that he would testify a certain way. And you heard him on the stand where he told you if he didn't testify in a way that satisfied the state, that they could charge him again with first-degree murder. That's the threat that he was under when he testified. You also heard from Buckskin, Billy Buckskin, and he was also threatened. Not by they didn't make him sit in jail for first-degree murder like Gerald Hamlin, but they were asking him questions. Detectives were asking him questions, and in the course of that, the detective said, "You're wasting my effing time." You know, that he got very aggressive with Buckskin at that time, and Buckskin's response was, "I'll do anything you want. I'll do whatever you want." And it was after that he made a statement about, made some statement out about, that Randy was higher than a kite, you know, that night. We know from Gerald Hamlin that wasn't true. We know from the facts in this case that Randy didn't have any meth. He didn't have any meth. He had maybe one beer when the guys were back in the covered wagon before they left. But it wasn't true that he was higher than a kite. Buckskin was saying whatever he could to get himself out of suffering the same fate as Gerald Hamlin. And the state, you also may notice something that's common when someone's up on the stand and they're being asked questions by somebody that's holding something over them, hold paper in their hand, and if they don't say what's being expected of them, then they ask the question again. What did he say? Did he say something more than that? And that's what we got out of Buckskin. However, one thing that is most telling about Buckskin's testimony, number one, he denied that any threat was made by Randy as the group was driving away from him, after Morey had been shot. He said, no, there weren't any threats made at that time. That contradicts what Hamlin had to say. No, there weren't any threats. And the other thing, he admitted that, and I think his exact words were, this is his words that he said to me, and then he said to you. There's no way that Randy went up there intending to shoot anybody that night. That was out of Buckskin. As far as all the bathroom stuff you were subjected to, that came in at the end. The state, I submit to you that the state not able to prove the elements of the offense in this case, and we're going to get into those elements in just a moment. They thought they'd go with the one thing that they could prove, and that was that Randy was mistaken in what he did at the bathroom that night. He went behind the bathroom to take a leak because it was the quickest way to get back there, or who knows if it wouldn't mean anything one way or another, even if he looked out the observation deck. Who cares? What is important is what actually happened, down there at the rest stop. I think it's ridiculous to think that, under these circumstances, when Randy was perfectly willing to talk with Morey Pelton in the daylight at the dollar store, just out in public, and he didn't choose the place where the meeting took place. That was Morey Pelton. Morey Pelton was the one that originally, his plan was to be at the dollar store and sell Kelly Hinks some methamphetamine. And he changed the plan, his plan, not anybody else's plan. That was Morey's plan. He changed it to go down to the lower level of the Lane Clark rest area. So all that stuff about, bathroom stuff, the state wants you to speculate on whether Randy was relieving himself, whether he was looking out the observation area. Who cares? That was a big waste of time. What we do know, among other things, is Randy didn't take any money. Randy didn't take any drugs. Randy expected to go to the dollar store in broad daylight and talk with Morey. And, again, he didn't pick the meeting place. Morey did. So if we can start with the first slide. Money, greed, and power. You heard the state make a statement, something like that, about greed and power and whatever, this case being about. This particular quote does not describe Randy Larkin. It is Morey Pelton's best friend, 2 days after he finds out that he has been shot. Describing Morey Pelton. This is Chris Hansen's description of Morey Pelton. And could you run that, please? Right here. This is after he had denied saying this.
I think more or less we got more is money. The greed, the money, the power, the people always want him, that's what all dealers enjoy is they have whatever they want.
The dealers, they have what everybody wants: money, greed, and power. That describes Morey Pelton. That's just one example of the prosecutor turning facts around in this case. And one thing that we do know, among many other things about Morey Pelton, is that he got part of his power by ingesting himself with methamphetamine and making him feel like a Superman. Okay, go on to the next, please. You've been given the offenses, the instructions on what the state needs to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to establish first-degree murder. And the elements that we have, we've got that, again, the first three, there's no question about that. This case is not about the first three. Randy shot Morey Pelton, so that's not what the case is about. The case is about the last three. That the defendant acted without justification or excuse. The state has to prove that Randy acted without justification or excuse, and you'll have in your instructions that justification, one form of justification is self-defense, and that's what we have in this case. That's what this case is all about. That the state cannot prove or disprove that Randy Larkin acted without justification or excuse. The state cannot prove and did not prove that Randy Larkin acted with malice aforethought. And finally, that the murder was a willful, deliberate, and premeditated killing. This was, again, not malice aforethought because, however mad Randy was at Morey Pelton, he walked away. He didn't walk up and shoot him in the head. Everybody testified that there was some kind of an argument going on. This was not an execution. This was Randy confronting Morey about why haven't you paid me? And as you can see, Morey's making up all kinds of reasons why. Oh gosh, it's Western Union, it's the Mexicans, it's them, it's some other guy, he made up all these ridiculous excuses. And Randy wanted to confront him about that, and he did. And he told you why he brought a gun, and it sounds like a reasonable thing to do under the circumstances. This was not, again, an execution, and we've shown you why. Now, premeditation. In order to be a premeditated killing, I would submit to you that Morey would have had to have been shot before he opened the door. Randy had the opportunity to do that. He had a gun with him. If he wanted to go up and execute him, he would have just pulled him out and shot him on the spot. He would have shot Morey before Morey noticed there was a gun in Randy's pants. He would have certainly shot before walking away. This was not an execution. This was an argument. And something else happened that made Randy turn around and be in fear for his life. So again, the state has to prove all these things beyond a reasonable doubt, and as the court is instructing, a mere unconsidered and rash impulse, even though it includes an intent to kill, is not premeditation. So they have to disprove that as well. The state has to disprove, or they have to prove all of these things. And all of their elements, if they don't prove them beyond a reasonable doubt, then we must find Randy Larkin not guilty. If we can cue up the slide on the second degree murder. The state recognizing that it can't, recognizing that it can't prove first degree murder, wants you to consider the second degree murder. And as you can see, the elements are the same, except that premeditation is not required. But self-defense, they still have to disprove self-defense, all the elements of self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. And they also have to prove that, again, that this was an act with malice aforethought and not something that happened as Randy Larkin was walking away. I think it's important to consider in here. We've got to consider all the circumstances. Morey attacked a man who was walking away from him that he knew had a gun. And Morey at the time was very high on methamphetamine and he had all these various things going on in his mind. He was not acting rationally. He had feelings of Superman who doesn't care if somebody's got a gun, he's gonna attack him anyway. And that's why Randy was attacked by Morey, because Morey, as full of meth as he was, decided that even though he saw this guy he saw Randy with a gun in his pants, he said, "I ain't afraid of you, old man." He knew that the old man had a gun. He still wasn't afraid of him because he's Superman. And so he got out, he was starting to get out to attack Randy when Randy shot him. And the justification again is Randy being faced with a guy that wanted to either kill him or do him great harm. And Randy was sure that he wanted to kill him, he was sure that he had a gun. Whether he saw a gun or not doesn't matter, because he knew that there was a gun. He reasonably believed that there was a gun next to Morey Pelton when Morey Pelton was seated in his car right before he got out to confront him. So he expected Morey to have a gun in his hand because he knew that he always had a gun in his car. The state has tried to flip the burden and make Randy prove his elements of self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. Randy, under the law, doesn't have to prove anything. He spoke to you to let you know what happened. The burden is entirely upon the state of all the elements. I thought it was interesting, I think, according to Dr. Christina DiLoretto, a wonderful witness, who's done, I don't know, countless autopsies since she was here, testifying that Morey Pelton, at the time of his death, was basically crouching down, looking to his left, and she, turned the shoulder a certain way, and that's entirely consistent with Morey Pelton getting out of his car. And she admitted that right in front of everyone. We said, well, how about if Morey Pelton was getting out of his car, looking right at Randy Larkin at the time he was shot, in this position? She said, yeah, that's possible. And that was the same possibility as if somebody were, standing outside of the car, shooting in a particular position, because of the way the bullet was. You didn't have to be standing outside the car, looking down at someone or looking up at Morey Pelton to get that bullet wound. It was entirely consistent that Morey Pelton was getting out of his car, looking down and backwards right at Randy Larkin, the man that I submit to you he was about to attack. So that's one of the state's main witnesses. And if we could see self-defense, did the state disprove it? Okay, without beating this in the ground anymore, the state cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Randy believed he was in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, for the reasons I just described to you. He knew Morey kept the gun next to him. We see the bullets. We knew that Morey had the bullets. At the time he was shot, his bullets for his gun were in his car. Randy was walking away when Morey was getting out to attack him. Morey stated right before the attack he wasn't afraid of Randy, knowing that Randy had a gun. Randy could look him right in the eyes and see a meth-raged man coming after him. This was not a calm man who was about to get a lot of money for drugs. This was a guy that was enraged when he came after Randy. Randy was no match for this man. All he could do at that point, 1 second away from death, is to use the gun that he had with him, and that's what he did. And that's self-defense, and the law says that you cannot convict him of murder or first-degree murder or second-degree murder under those circumstances. The things that we know about Morey, if we can see the next slide here. Morey Pelton had a high level of methamphetamine in his blood at the time, 1,900 nanograms per milliliter, and he was out of touch with reality. He would be expected to exhibit extreme violence and feelings like he was Superman. Morey Pelton was known to carry a gun, and he hated Randy Larkin. If we go on to the next slide, slide 6. So we asked Dr. Robin Dodson, like Dr. Dodson, our professor from Idaho State University. He was asked if he could make, if he had an opinion concerning how the methamphetamine in Morey Pelton's blood would have affected him. Now, it's interesting, you know, we had an expert on that, and the state's expert was one of its own detectives, and surprisingly, not surprisingly, said that, well, you know, we can't know these things for sure. Yeah, meth can do all these things, but we can't know these things for sure. But Dodson said, oh, yes, we can. Yeah, we can know these things for sure. He had somewhere between 1,300 nanograms per milliliter and 1,900 at the time of death, the time he was shot. Extremely high levels of methamphetamine. The toxic level of methamphetamine being 200 nanograms per milliliter. There's no question that he was very high in meth at the time of the incident. And because he was so high on meth at the time of the incident, he would be suffering from psychosis, a loss of touch with reality, extreme violence, and feelings of being Superman. All those things, characteristics of someone with that high of a level of methamphetamine in their system. Can we have the next slide, please? Things we know about Dr. DiLoretto. And we just covered that briefly. We know about the body position. We know about the head position. And we know she confirmed the level of methamphetamine in the femoral blood. Next slide, please. This is the most interesting witness of the whole trial. Dr. Matthew Nodell. Never expect to see this from a witness. He got up and he testified to facts that were the basis of his opinion that he knew to be false when he testified. He testified that he knew Morey Pelton was seated in his car at the time of death because of the headliner that had blood that would have been over Morey Pelton's head, and that would have been from the blood spatter at the time of the shooting. That is the cutout that was done, and that cutout was done actually by the Idaho State, I think, toxicologists and persons that were working for the state of Idaho, and they tested that blood, what they thought was blood, or what Dr. Nodell thought was blood, and confirmed it wasn't. So for all we know, it was a beer that he was drinking and just it fizzed up to the ceiling, or a soda pop that fizzed up to the ceiling. It wasn't blood. There wasn't any blood there. And Dr. Nodal knew that when he testified before you. Not only did he know that, but at the time, knowing all that, knowing that it was false, he brought in a microscopic photograph that he took, through a microscope of that piece of cloth, showing the fibers and saying that the dark spots were blood, and you could tell they were blood, by the way they looked in the fibers, and he knew that was false. He admitted that on cross-examination. That was not blood. And he spent all that time talking with you about how, that was blood, and he could tell because he tested that, he looked at that through the microscope, and that's what blood looks like. But it wasn't blood. But he tried to convince you anyway. In a trial where a man is being accused of first-degree murder, they put on a witness, a key witness, a key piece of evidence that lied to you, testified knowing it was false. In addition to that, he also testified that there was a streak, in the seat behind behind where Morey Pelton was seated, and there was a line, looked like a drip, of reddish-brown substance. And he said, "Well, that's blood. That's blood spatter." I'm just a novice, but it didn't look like spatter, like things going around like that. It was a drip. And he said he knew that was blood as well, but he didn't test it. He could not, on cross-examination, he had to admit that he didn't know what it was. It could be pop, could be some brown liquid, could be from somebody else, could be from a different time. He had no idea. And again, in a case where the state has burden of proof on all elements beyond a reasonable doubt, he testified that this was proof, but he knew that there was that he had no idea whether it was blood or some other drink or what. The other thing that we know about Matthew Nodal, when he got this assignment, he knew that the state wanted to place Morey Pelton fully seated in the driver's seat. That was his task, to confirm that, and that's what he did in his opinion. And I'm sorry, but you don't do that way. It's just too important. Justice is more important than confirming a theory of the state. We think instead that you should follow the evidence. We did have somebody that followed the evidence, Kim Duddy. I was a little bit surprised. I think Mr. Hatterley was just mistaken in saying that Kim Duddy was retired. She's not retired. She's one of the most active blood spatter analysts from Bevel Gardner that we have in the Western United States. She has been doing this for a very long time. She's very good at what she does. Matter of fact, we had to drag her out from testifying in another trial up in Washington and get her out of through a storm they were having up in Seattle and bring her down here to testify. Fortunately, we got her down here with notwithstanding the weather. But she is a professional. This is what she does for a living. And what she had to base her testimony on was the photographs that she got from the state. And she testified that Morey Pelton was between a seated and fully standing position when he was shot. Between that. He wasn't seated. He was between those two positions. Morey Pelton was located between the front driver's seat and the open front door, the front driver's side door. Blood was ejected from his right sleeve, and notice he was wearing a short sleeve, and his sleeve was kind of bunched up in here. And you can see if you have the slide that has shows the blood under where it came out of Morey's sleeve. That's not gravity. That stuff is like a solid line that shot out. It did not drip out. That shot out at high speed, and you could see that, and that was at the time of the shooting, that sleeve was pointed out in this direction. And so I'll tell you, that may take away a bit from what Randy remembers as seeing a gun in the hand he thought he saw one. According to Kim, the arm, this part of the arm would have been, I guess you could see it this way. But this part of the arm, when he was shot, the blood shot out of his right sleeve toward the steering wheel and toward the front portion of the dash, and just hit some of the items in the front of the car there. So we got that from her. And you will notice if you see that photograph of Morey Pelton's sleeve, that line of blood is different from any of the other blood, because it's a solid shot out of there at high speed. She testified that Morey Pelton's left foot was on the ground outside the vehicle when he was shot. No question about that. And that's also consistent with Randy Larkin hearing the crunch of gravel on the ground before he turned and fired. Kim Duddy testified Morey Pelton's head and left shoulder were outside of the vehicle when he was shot, looking toward the back of his car, which is right where Randy would have been. Morey Pelton's right foot was off the floor and beginning to exit the vehicle. Morey Pelton did not crawl from the door, but had stood up at one point before falling forward. So, as I mentioned earlier, it would seem to me more likely, just without knowing anything else, if a person was fully seated and shot in the face, if he would then get up, open the door, step out, stand up, or if he was in the process of standing up when he got shot. And in the process of standing up when he's getting shot, that makes a lot more sense. And that's consistent with Kim Duddy's testimony, and also consistent with Randy Larkin's testimony. See you next. Thank you. So again, this case, I'm wrapping up now. This case about what happened in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, an argument, not an execution. Walking away. And the state has the burden of disproving that beyond a reasonable doubt. And I submit to you that it's demonstrated that the more likely scenario is that Randy Larkin was defending himself at the time. From all the evidence that we have, and just as a final thought here, I'm going to be sitting down in just a moment, and I can't say any more. Prosecutor can say whatever they want to say, and I'm not allowed to ask any questions. So I ask you to listen with a critical eye when the prosecution stands back up, and whatever they have to say, you realize that I cannot question anything that they say at that point. That's up to you. You know, for you to use your powers of reason, you know, that you all have. And one thing that I would say, just in closing here, is what Billy Buckskin said when he was not being threatened by the detectives. Quote, "There's no way that Randy Larkin went to that rest stop intending to kill anybody." Thank you.
One of the voices you represent is the victim, and he can't be here either. And so when we talk about the sides of the story that you could normally sort through, a murder case is especially difficult just simply because of that. The victim's voice has to be heard in some other way. It's not uncommon in these kind of cases to see the victim put on trial, the police put on trial, the state put on trial. Everybody except the defendant. And it's also difficult as you sit here day in, day out, and you see a defendant sitting at the table. He looks to have medical issues. He looks elderly. He looks like he right now couldn't hurt a fly. To see that just day in and day out for 14 days, because that puts a reality on who you are judging. I get that. In the opposite way, you can't see Morey Pelton. He can't come in here and speak up for himself. But the reason that this is particularly important is that this isn't just a fight between Randy Larkin and Morey Pelton. Morey was a son, has children, family. He was a living, breathing human being. And the only thing that we could show was him dead, lying on the asphalt, or in the morgue, matted blood in his face. And then there's, of course, the attempt here to make Morey seem like an evil dude, just an awful person, worthy of life. So there was a dispute that broke out here. And there may have been two sides to that story, but the problem that developed had to do with the ability of one side to win over the other. So we heard some testimony about Morey Pelton says, I'm not scared of you. You'll get paid when I decide to pay you, and you can't do anything about it. And you heard the testimony from the defendant saying, I recognize that. There was no other remedy here. This had to be dealt with in the streets. A drug deal, a drug debt gone wrong. And somebody is dead now. That's not the fault of the police. That's not the fault of the state. That's the fault of one person. And he's been here in this courtroom. He talked to you. He tried to explain why he did what he did. But when we talk about an isolated circumstance like this, away from cameras in the dark, where only a few people are present, it's just all too easy to say, I thought I saw a gun. Well, okay, is that the get out of jail free card? I thought I saw a gun. We wouldn't have any murders anymore. I thought I saw a gun. And now the state can't prove it, because it's hard to prove a negative or disprove that the person was not acting in self-defense. But how can we do that? How can we do that? I mean, the expectation is there that the state should be able to. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have trials for murder anymore. There must be some way for the victim to tell their side of the story. There must be some way for the jury to be able to decipher from the evidence and from the facts whether or not there was a true self-defense or not. So let's talk about this idea, if I can have just a second to plug this in. There we go. Some of the folks that I work with recognize this picture. They've seen it for 20 years. It's one I've used in one of my first jury trials right here in this courtroom. And this is a demonstration of what the state's burden is. So when law enforcement gets called to this scene, they don't have much to go on. They start collecting evidence. They start getting little pieces of the puzzle. And these little pieces get fit together one at a time. But because of the limitations that we have, we're not writing a novel here. We're not writing the story. This is the limitations that we have in real life. Things get lost. Things are not going to be able to be proven one way or another because little pieces of the story are lost as time goes on. Now, in the movies, we just create a smoking gun. And that makes everybody who's watching the show know what the truth was. In reality, there's always going to be these little pieces. When does it go beyond a reasonable doubt? Because it's not beyond all doubt. It's not beyond the shadow of a doubt. And there is no legal standard that you must give the defendant the benefit of the doubt. Where does it become beyond a reasonable doubt? Well, that's when there are enough pieces in the puzzle that the image becomes so clear, and even if you had other pieces of the puzzle, it wouldn't change. It wouldn't change what this is. There's just no doubt that any of these little pieces that could have been plugged in, that were in the original situation, that are lost forever, that even if those were discovered and they were plugged in, that it would change this image. We know what this is, despite a few missing pieces. That story has been told. That story has been told through multiple sources, not just the defendant, multiple sources. And in fact, many of those points of the story actually have been confirmed or admitted by the defendant. That he entered into a deal with Morey Pelton. He gave him thousands of dollars. He expected that back within a month, and he expected drugs on top of it. That was his motive. But when drugs started being sold, he started hearing about drugs being sold, and he wasn't getting any of it, and he wasn't seeing any of the money, then he became frustrated, and he became angry. And he said things about Morey Pelton. We heard that from multiple sources. You have no idea what I'm capable of.
Your Honor, this is rebuttal. It's not supposed to be a rehash of closing arguments. And I'd also object to counsel saying the defendant does not get the benefit of the doubt, because I think that states the reasonable doubt burden that they have. That's fine.
Of course, in order you to follow the instructions as given by the court, what the jury says is not evidence, and Mr. Brown is correct that the rebuttal needs to address the arguments made by the defense. But go ahead.
Thank you. I really don't need to go to jail. 4 days before the shooting, I really don't need to go to jail right now, knowing exactly what I will do. Don't want the expense of sending someone else. You picked the wrong time to play.
Your Honor, this is not rebuttal. Not addressing what was, our argument.
He told another person, and remember, in order to believe the story here of Randy Larkin, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take a piece of puzzle and we're trying to insert it into this image, and we're trying to change it. And if this piece of the puzzle is in fact self-defense, it does change that image. Well, how do you determine whether or not that piece of puzzle fits? Well, you look at everything that surrounds it. You look to see if the color is the same. You look to see if the shape is appropriate. And when you don't see things, when you see things that don't correspond with that piece of the puzzle, then you know, hey, this piece of the puzzle isn't from this puzzle. This doesn't fit. So when we look at whether or not this was self-defense, we have to look at whether what Randy Larkin asserted was in fact that it credibly, meaning it can be believed, fits into what we know from all the other witnesses. And it does not. We talk about the two witnesses who were there. He was angry about it and wanted to beat the shit out of Morey, denied. Larkin wanted to beat Morey up, He denied that. Larkin was mad. He denied that. On the way to the rest area, he said he wanted to beat Morey up and wanted to shoot the son of a bitch. Denied that. After he got into the vehicle, after shooting Morey, he said, keep your mouth shut, don't say anything.
Your Honor, again, this is rehashing what they already did. It's improper rebuttal.
Court's gonna allow it as there was discussion about these conversations as part of the program.
He denied that. In other words, you have to, in order to believe Randy Larkin, have to discount Britta Jackson, Kristen Davis, his own daughter, Chelsea, William Burton, who was there, and then Gerald Hamlin, who said similarly that he said that he didn't even ask Hamlin for a ride. He said that he had vehicles that were running. Remember, Gerald Hamlin said something different. He said that he was, they were talking about beating up Morey, taking his drugs and the money he owed him. He denied that happened. He denied that he said snitches they find in ditches. And then he denied that he continued to threaten Mr. Hamlin. He denied that. So Mr. Hamlin, those pieces that came into this picture from his testimony won't fit with this. The pieces of the puzzle that came in from William Burton, they don't fit with this. The pieces that came in through Kristen Davis, and Britta Jackson, and Chelsea, they don't fit with this piece. That's where the proof beyond a reasonable doubt that this is not a self-defense case starts. But then we look at things we don't even have to worry about. The credibility of that witness. We begin to look at the scientific evidence. Those are the things that can't be disputed. It isn't based on whether a person is telling the truth or not. And you have the pictures that everyone has agreed upon of the scene, of the vehicle, of the victim, and you are able to see the silent witness that is left behind there by the scientific evidence. So let's talk about the two versions of the story. I want to remind you that what the lawyers say is not evidence. And you maybe heard some things in the closing argument for the first time. Maybe you heard things that you'd never heard because it was basically the lawyer testifying about how long it took for Morey Pelton to die. That is not evidence. The evidence about his death is that he was struck in the neck and that the bullet passed in 3 directions. So left to right, top to bottom, and front to back. Do you remember hearing those words during testimony? We heard it from the medical examiner, and then we heard it again one more time from the defendant. Where was he standing? He was standing in a place that Morey Pelton was looking to the left. He was standing from up above. He was standing to the left, and he was from front to back. Not my testimony. That was Mr. Larkin admitting the position that he was in when he was at next to the door. Exactly mirroring the evidence. There are some Venn diagram facts that came in from both experts. You know, at the end, after cross-examination, you heard that he was in a seated or a slightly elevated position. Because the blood stains are inside the car, and they are not outside the car. You'll have these photographs to look at. The fact is that from the driver's side door back, there's no blood on the outside of that car. There's nothing on the driver's rear door. There's nothing on the fender. It's on the front door, it's on the threshold, and then there's a bunch of blood inside the car. The other blood is where Morey Pelton fell to his death in a pool of blood underneath him. So where did the shooting occur? Outside the car? That is against the testimony of both witnesses. Both witnesses said, the expert witnesses said he was inside the car. Now, how do we know that there's some credibility issues with how the shooting was described? Remember that both the medical examiner, Dr. De Loretto, who did the autopsy, pointed to stippling. And Mr. Nodell pointed out stippling. That is close. That means the shooter was close. That happens when the gun is close. So every time you hear of a step away from the victim, the story loses credibility. There's also the testimony by their own expert that when the blood was being distributed, it landed on the seatbelt behind the driver's seat, on the side of the driver's seat. And then, of course, we know that there's blood on the door. We know that there's blood on the steering wheel. There's blood on the console. There's blood on things that were in the console. All of those things. When you start having the person come out of the car, what happens to where the wound must have been? Well, it's this simple. The bullet isn't going to take a right turn. If I'm shooting, every step I take back means I can't possibly shoot through the car and wound him inside the car. Doesn't work. It's basic geometry. I have to be in a position where I can fire into that car where he was in a seated or nearly seated position. That's the Venn diagram facts. Every step I say I take away means that that's not possible because the angle isn't possible. Because as soon as that wound is outside past the threshold of that door, blood is going to go this way and every other way. And it didn't hit the backside door on the driver's side. You can see that. The pictures are clear. The testimony was Randy got aggressive. And that's why Randy Larkin needs to say, I was walking away. What possible motivation does Morey Pelton have to go attack at that point? Because he was getting flipped off? That's his testimony. That it was actually the last thing that Morey said had something to do with, you're too old, you can't do anything about it, and he flipped him off. And suddenly he heard a sound. He heard a sound in the gravel. You've got pictures. It's not gravel, it's asphalt. The door flew open, and he saw that Morey Pelton was coming out in a rage. And his arm came around. We saw this. We put him into that place. We saw him positioned. Now, if anybody knows what position the person was in when he shot him, it should be the person who shot him. And so when he's talking about the arm coming around, despite counsel's attempt to change that testimony, he told you exactly where the arm was. And where would this blood come from? You have to have the source of blood wherever those stains are. You can't have them out here. The blood's not going to fly around and pick and choose where it's going to go. That's the problem with this story, that he was walking away. And then, how is it consistent with self-defense? What happened afterwards? I just shot him, and now he's turning back around at me. He doesn't have a gun. How do you know? Because you knew he didn't have a gun in the first place. That's not how it happened. Well, if you thought he had a gun, well, that would be pretty important. You'd want to document that. You'd want to find out, hey, everybody, come. I've got witnesses. How lucky. I've got 3 friendly people who can all testify when I have to go stand in front of a judge like this. Hey, check it out. He had a gun. If that was self-defense, that would fit into that part of it that he would act. Hey, did you guys see that? Because you can be my witness now. Hey, let's look for the gun, because then we can prove to the cops I was acting in self-defense, because there's the gun I saw. Did he do either of those things? Absolutely not. He jumped into his car, but before he did, he turned towards Kelly Heems and told him, get the out of here. And I asked him why. Do you remember what he said? Because we were going to be in trouble. We. Not I'm going to be in trouble. We. He slipped. You could see this almost, his eyes were like a doe caught in the headlights. Whoops. I had this great story I've been telling. Whoops. I said, we were going to be in trouble. If this was self-defense by him responding to an attack by Morey Pelton, how would anybody be in trouble? But especially, how would the 3 other people be in trouble? 2 of them said, I never got out of the car and I didn't even look up. I was watching my phone and I was playing games. How were they going to be in trouble? And if you just had this life-altering situation, what are you going to talk about? What's the discussion going to be? Nothing? We didn't say anything about what just happened? And if it's self-defense, then why go destroy evidence? That doesn't fit. Why take the gun and put it into the dumpster? Why do that? Because you're concealing evidence. Of what? Self-defense? You conceal evidence of a crime. Now, the next question, if this wasn't self-defense, was it premeditated? Was there planning? Was there thought, hey, I'm going to take this gun. Absolutely, check. I'm going to take a gun. And that was an affirmative action. We can all agree on that. The gun wasn't in Hamlin's car. It wasn't just coincidental that the gun was there. The testimony by Mr. Larkin, I went and I got it out of the trunk and I took it purposely. I took it purposely because I was going to confront Morey Pelton. That was on purpose. I then went and I'm heading towards IDAHO Falls. And we don't know how that changed. But one thing counsel said, which is absolutely untrue, is that it was Morey Pelton's idea to go to the rest area. You'll have that in your evidence. Kelly Hinks was the one who suggested that rest area. And that's not a debate between the 2 lawyers. We can't change what happened. That's evidence that you can review. And then, when it was found out where that was going to be, you have the Hamlin vehicle driving down, and they drive down into that parking lot and they spend 5 minutes. They're hanging out down there, and apparently from the testimony they all say we didn't talk about nothing. Then they go up, they go out, and they go down the road a little ways. About 5 minutes later they come back. The testimony was to go to the bathroom. But we know that's not true. What he did is he walked out into that back area, the area that overlooks the lower parking lot. Well, what's the interest with the lower parking lot? If all they were gonna do is come into the rest area, why not be in the upper parking lot? Why go down to the lower parking lot where there's very little lighting and no surveillance cameras? Why go in Mr. Hamlin's vehicle that coincidentally can't be linked back to Mr. Larkin? The license plate, the description of the car would have meant nothing. It would have meant nothing because nobody recognized that vehicle. Why go down and talk to Kelly Hinks for a minute? Why go down there? Why not stay down there? Because they wanted Morey Pelton down there before they confronted him. They knew that as he came into this rest area, they would drive right by a car he'd never seen with Washington plates on it. Wouldn't even be suspicious. Wouldn't even raise an eyebrow, as he didn't know that car. But why be up there at all? If Kelly Hinks is down there and he's going to meet Morey Pelton, why go up into the other lot and wait for him? And then just seconds after he goes down into the lower lot, they pull down there. And you get a couple of different stories about what happened. A couple of different stories, but some things are the same. That Hinks backed in. Why? Well, they want you to believe, well, that's just the way drug transactions go. But it also makes Kelly Hinks' vehicle pointed directly out so he doesn't have to back out. He's ready to roll. Hamlin testifies that he went and made a short U-turn, that he didn't go up around the loop. He made a short U-turn, he's the driver, and that he came up behind the vehicles, again, pointed towards the exit. All of those things are planning. All of those things are preparation. All of those things are, we know something's happening. And yet, the other day, I was with my paralegal and she says, I need to drop a letter in the blue box. So we pulled over. And do you know what I watched? Her get out, put the letter in the blue box, and walk back. Because that was what was playing on the TV at that moment in my life. These folks knew there was going to be a confrontation. And even if they didn't, they heard a confrontation and didn't look up from their phones once. Not once is their testimony. Didn't see a thing. That was their testimony. And why? What's the motive there? Well, it's because admitting knowledge beforehand, admitting you knew what was going to happen, and in some cases they did, that they were going to go beat the shit out of him and take his money and drugs. They were, everybody knows, when it's a bank robbery, what happens to the getaway driver? He's just as guilty as the guy who walked in. Everybody knows that. And so they have to pretend we have no knowledge of what's going on. We don't know what he's going to do. But the words that they leak out, the phrases that they've given us, give us an idea. Number one, we have this, hey, so you brought a gun? Where was that gun at the time? Well, the words of Kelly Hinks are important. They say, put that thing up. Randy Larkin said he only said that because he couldn't see. Really? Why would he say, hey, put that thing up? if it wasn't out, if it wasn't in his hand. Hey, put that up. Stop fucking around. Well, okay, we have testimony that clearly between the 4 individuals at this scene, none of them could have beat the shit out of Morey Pelton. They were all too old and out of shape. There's just no question. They weren't there to beat the shit out of him. But they were there to get drugs and money, because that was what he was owed. And when he testified what his purpose was, what did he say? I was there to get my money and drugs? No, his testimony is, I wanted to look him in the eye. Does that make sense? I just wanted to look him in the eye with a gun in my belt. And then we have this heated exchange. These FUs go back and forth. We have these words about, I'm not afraid of you. Why would Morey Pelton have any reason to be afraid that night of a 60-year-old man who clearly, with his medical issues, couldn't have laid a finger on him? Why would he have been afraid? One reason, the gun. The gun. What are you gonna do? Shoot me? I'm not afraid of you, old man. And so there he is, Randy Larkin, being humiliated. His plan is not working. And now the person he's trying to get the drugs and money from is calling his bluff. What are you going to do? Shoot me? You'll get it if I decide to give it to you. You're just an old man. Bang. He wasn't bluffing. And that's what he had to prove to himself. The others may have been surprised, but the fact was, when it came down to the decision to shoot Morey Pelton or walk away, Randy Larkin shot him. That's what happened. Does that fit with all the other pieces of the puzzle? Does that fit why they fled the scene like they were driving getaway cars, going through the wrong lane of traffic and pulling out in front, cutting off cars? Does that fit with throwing away evidence? Does that fit with Randy Larkin paying Kelly Hinks in 2 ounces of drugs that night? And does that fit with the fact there was no discussion? How am I going to show I was acting in self-defense? No attempt to get any evidence. No attempt to contact the police. No attempt to find out if any of the 3 people there could back up his story. There is one reasonable conclusion. He knew they couldn't. It's just that simple. They couldn't back up his story. Because Morey Pelton didn't have a gun. This was a power struggle. This was a power struggle. You know, I'm almost the age, right around the same age as these 4 folks. And it's affecting me. I'm not the lawyer I used to be. There's a time coming very soon. I won't have the mental acuity or even the physical ability to do the job. And that is scary. And that's frustrating. And in a little way, it's a little bit humiliating. And I'm sure that in that moment when he was getting frustrated that this 36-year-old is treating me like a punk. He's treating me like I won't follow through, like I'm bluffing. The thing that set him off is, I'm not afraid of you, old man. You're too old to do anything about it. And how do we know that? Because at the hospital, that's exactly what he said. I shot a man. He thought I was too old. Randy has already admitted to malice. I don't know if you remember, but I actually took the 3 factors there and I walked him right through it. And he admitted to each of those 3 prongs. That he knew what he was doing was dangerous, that he knew what he was doing could lead to death, and that he intentionally pulled that trigger. This is a tough job. I got it. We're asking you, because you got a driver's license or you registered to vote, to come in here and pass judgment on this man that you've never met. But you know what? You are not responsible for what happens to him. You're not. You're not. He's responsible for the decision he made. But it is your duty, as the voice of our community, it is your duty to hold him accountable. So based on the evidence you have, based on the way these pieces of the puzzle come together, there is only one conclusion. A drug deal gone bad